Welcome to Becoming Limitless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to optimize their brain and their body with biohacking. I'm going to teach you how to eliminate brain fog and upgrade your health so you can have more productivity, energy, and growth in your business. I'm your host, Tanessa Shears. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 30 already. I can hardly believe it, and I am so excited to bring to you an episode today, and I love talking about this. If you followed me on Instagram at all, you'll know that I talk about this all the time. This episode is about chronotypes. Now, you're going to leave this episode knowing exactly what that word means, how you can use it to biohack, and exactly what your chronotype is. But the other reason for this episode is because I want to bust the myth that the 5 a.m. club is something you need to belong to be highly successful in your business. We're told all the time that if we want to be super successful, we have to be up before sunrise and have this perfect morning routine. Well, perhaps that could be true, but it doesn't have to be true. So I'm going to be giving you the science around your wake up time and how you can decide exactly what schedule you need to be on to be completely optimized. This episode is also for you if you've ever, wondered why it's so dang hard to wake up in the morning, or why you feel like you're dragging all day, or perhaps maybe your days you don't get as much done during your work hours as you'd like to, and you're spending like so much time distracted, or maybe even battling foggy thinking. And, like I said, perhaps you've even tried to join the 5 a.m. club just because you wanted to squeeze a little more productivity out of your day because some internet guru told you that this was the way to do it. But I'm going to tell you, nothing has gone wrong if this is all happening to you. In fact, you are in the perfect place. Today, we are going to learn how to biohack your body's natural biorhythm by discovering your genetic chronotype and busting the myth of the 5 a.m. club once and for all. Now, I happened to discover the whole concept of a chronotype completely by accident. But as soon as I learned what it was, I was like, oh, that's what I've been doing. That's why it makes so much more sense, and it makes it so much easier to explain to you. So I used to go to sleep around 10:30 to 11 at night pretty consistently and wake up around 6 to 6:30 a.m. And I used to force myself to wake up to go to the gym. This was pre-pregnancy. My husband and I used to get up 4 to 5 mornings per week, hit the gym by 6:30, usually be home by 7:30. But I always used to notice I used to drag all day. And because at that point I didn't have my daughter, I could work whenever. So I was just kind of feeling tired, but I would put it off just because, I was feeling a little down now, and I just kind of never really felt like I was getting into flow. And then on weekends, I'd wake up at 8, and my bedtimes were so inconsistent throughout the week. But after I had my daughter, Hannah, my work availability time became so much more structured because unless I had childcare, I had to be getting all of my work done between 5:30 and 8:30 in the morning, which was when she was still asleep, and during her naps, which were constantly changing. If you've ever had a kid before, you'll know that their naps evolve as they get older. They go from sleeping every couple hours to every 3 to 4 hours to every 4 to 5 hours, so it's constantly fluctuating. So my work always has to fit into this container. So I was almost, you could say, forced to switch my work hours just because I was at the mercy of my daughter's schedule. But when I switched to this, I found I was actually waking up more alert at 5:30 than I was at 6:30. And that's including all of those times that I had to wake up with my daughter in the middle of the night. I mean, I don't have to do that so much now, but then I was noticing it, and I noticed that the quality and the speed with which I was working was so much better. I found that I could sit and ask my brain to give me longer stretches of uninterrupted work without getting, distracted all the time. And I didn't sit in confusion as much. When you feel overwhelmed and you don't know what to do and you just kind of fiddle around on Facebook and email because your brain doesn't know exactly what the steps that it should be doing next, or it does and it doesn't want to do it. And I noticed that my food cravings changed. I was no longer, craving food throughout the day multiple times a day, and I was just waking up feeling a lot better. And like I said, I didn't realize that I had naturally and completely by accident stumbled into my chronotype. So chronotype is a word that I want you to leave with today and be like, yes, I know what that is, and I know how it relates to me. So what is a chronotype? A person's chronotype basically indicates whether they are more of a morning person or more of an evening person. It's basically the timing of your biological clock. Most of us have heard the terms early bird or late night owl, and that's getting into the idea of a chronotype. If you remember back in episode 2 of the podcast, I taught you how to wake up without an alarm clock. And I discussed the idea of your circadian rhythm, how your body functions relative to a 24-hour clock as a broad concept. But today, we're going to be biohacking our unique chronotypes and our circadian rhythm. So just to refresh, in case you were like, I don't remember what a circadian rhythm is, it also goes by the term biorhythm. And it's the schedule of your biological clock or your natural internal process that regulates your sleep and wake cycle and so many other things like the rise and fall of hormones, body temperature changes with relation to the clock, your mood, and all of this functions relative to a 24-hour day. So if you're asking, well, how does this relate to us as entrepreneurs? Well, by finding your rhythm and following your natural energy rises and energy lulls, and by following your sleep pattern, this allows you to have much less brain fog, much clearer thinking, more productivity and results created with your work during your work time. You wake up more rested, you have higher quality sleeps. All of this leads to you getting more of the stuff you want to get done. And then you can scale your business a lot faster because you're not spending time in the weeds doing the busy work, and it helps you really stay focused. If you check back on episode 3 I did on this podcast, we talked about the idea that having a consistent rhythm allows you to get the most out of your quality of sleep. I'm talking about your REM and your deep sleep. We discussed the idea that by going to sleep and waking up at relatively the same time night after night, it allows your body to enjoy all of the types of sleep. So we know that a lot of your deep sleep, the quality sleep that allows for long-term memory storage and refreshing of your muscle and the cleaning up of the brain, that happens during deep sleep primarily at the beginning of the night. And then we shift to a higher ratio of dreaming at the early morning hours. That's called your REM sleep or your rapid eye movement. So by going to sleep and waking up at the same time, you know that you're getting enough deep sleep and enough REM sleep. But if you're constantly, going to bed late one night, waking up early one morning, you're going to be cutting into the quality sleep on either end, and you're going to always feel groggy. So this is something you can easily change by having a consistent rhythm. So remember, like I said, check out episode 2 and 3 to get all the background and get caught up to date on what happens while you sleep. So much of this research on chronotypes that I have been doing is based on the book called The Power of When by Dr. Michael Breus. And I'm going to leave a link in the podcast description all about this so you can go and check this book out. This book has looked at dozens and dozens of research papers, and the field of chronotypes and biorhythms is relatively new, but it is being studied, and there's so much evidence to show that it is impactful not only on our ability to be productive, but our health. So what is going wrong with what we're currently doing right now? Well, every day we are unintentionally creating something called chrono misalignment. So if you think of the word chrono, it means time, right? So you're misaligning the time of your body, chrono misalignment. So that negative impact on your health, your focus, and your energy that it's happening is all due to your social schedule being out of sync with your biological schedule. So your biological schedule is your chronotype, meaning your body's genetic propensity to be either a morning person or an evening person, whereas your social schedule is pretty much what you want your schedule to look like, what you want your bedtime to be, what time you have to get up for work, what time you sleep until on the weekends. It's basically how you alter your schedule because of what you want it to be. So I gave you a pretty good example earlier on when I was telling you that I used to, stay up till 11:30, wake up at 6:30 every morning, and this was how I was trying to make my schedule. But when I started biohacking not only my night routine and my bedroom and my sleep, I actually found that my natural rhythm settled a lot closer from 9 to 9:30 p.m. to 5 to 5:30 in the morning. So my social schedule at that time, trying to stay up later, go to the gym at 6 a.m. every morning, that was actually my social schedule. But my biological schedule wanted me to be asleep by 9 to 9:30 and waking up at 5 to 5:30. So as long as I was out of sync with that, I was always going to feel behind and a little bit draggy. This caused me to be out of sync with so many things. I'm going to tell you just some of the things that happen during your natural 24-hour rhythm, regardless of what category of sleeper and your category of chronotype you are. So when you go to bed at night, your core temperature begins to drop. That helps with melatonin release, right? When you get that core temperature drop. Your blood pressure drops as it gets later at night, and your heart rate drops. You also get that natural increase in melatonin, and naturally cortisol drops. These things all play together in your bedtime window so that you have a wonderful sleep. Now, in the morning when you're waking up, the opposite things happen. Your body temperature begins to rise and prep you for the day and warm you up. Your blood pressure and your heart rate increase. Melatonin starts to drop off so that you don't feel sleepy anymore. And cortisol, the hormone that we hear about with stress, well, it has the purpose of waking you up as well. So we use cortisol in a great way in the morning to help us feel more alert. The problem is if we miss this, meaning we miss aligning our wake up time with this natural temperature rise, blood pressure rise, heart rate rise, drop in melatonin, and increase in the hormone cortisol that makes you feel alert, you are going to experience something called social jet lag. So you know that feeling when you've come back from a vacation and you are trying to go to sleep, but the place that you just came from, it's still like 5 p.m. It's that feeling of being completely out of sync with your biological clock and the actual time on the clock. Well, you can actually give that to yourself unintentionally by changing your bedtime every night. Although you may not recognize it, and it may not be like I feel as off as if I just got off a plane from a vacation, in a 6-hour different time zone, your body will recognize it. And it can happen in as little as one night of sleep that doesn't follow your chronotype and your circadian rhythm. And it was really interesting. Dr. Bruce, the guy who wrote The Power of One book, he started recognizing this in his patients in his clinical practice. And he noticed that his patients seemed to fit into one of 4 different chronotypes that were present in his patients, like I said. And another thing that he noticed was that the patients he had that were living out of sync with their chronotypes tended to have so many different health struggles, everything from weight gain to poor sleep to brain fog to chronic illnesses, anxiety, higher stress levels. He started noticing all of this. So he started really implementing this idea of chronotypes with his patients and watched so many of these problems and health symptoms disappear. And his book goes into great detail discussing how there is a biological right time for nearly everything you do in a day. I mean, even as far as looking at the implication of how time of day affects everything from the results you get on your medical tests to when we should be taking medication to even like having disagreements with your partner, all based on your natural biology. So I highly recommend if you want to dive into that beyond just figuring out what your chronotype is and what time to go to sleep and wake up, check that book out. It was fascinating to see how many things I could adjust in my life so that everything felt a lot more easy. So you know me, as I'm reading this book, I'm like, well, how does this relate to my entrepreneurial clients? And his scientific approach to right timing had so many things that were relevant. Your chronotype might indicate best when you should write an email or send a pitch or conduct an interview or sit down and brainstorm for the growth of your business, or when you should complete your deep blocks of work and when you should complete your light blocks of work, when you should write a book, when you should attend a meeting, all of this based on your natural biology, how your hormones work, and a whole host of other things. Not only does it relate to your business, but it relates to biohacking. This book gave me so many ideas, and these are things I help with my clients with when to best sleep, when to best eat, have their coffee, get their workouts, go for a walk, cut off alcohol, when to weigh themselves, practice yoga, or go for a run. Like, there are suggestions for all of these things. Now, when I do introduce them, not only with myself, but with my clients, I always look at it as a guideline because our schedules are also different. So we need to make sure we're allowing for it. So for example, if it's recommended to go for a workout in the morning, if that's not ideal with the schedule, then we only take it as a guideline and not a rule. We like to think of it as something to help you optimize your schedule and not just a set of rules to follow, but something to really evaluate and see if it has a positive impact on how you show up in your business. And it was so interesting after reading the book. I'm like, hey, I already intuitively do so much of this, which made sense with why I got such a productivity boost when I aligned my schedule with my correct chronotype. So you've heard all about chronotypes now and how important they are to us as entrepreneurs and biohacking. So we are going to break down the 4 categories of chronotypes that are described in this book. So I'm going to be going through them. I highly recommend you go to Dr. Michael Bruce's website. It's called thepowerofwhenquiz.com. Thepowerofwhenquiz.com. I am going to leave that in the description so that you can just click on it and go there. This quiz will take you maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and it's going to give you what your animal type is that is going to relate for your chronotype. So like I said, the author breaks all of the different chronotypes up into 4 main categories. Those are dolphin, lion, bear, and wolf. So if you have the opportunity right now to pause the podcast, go take the quiz, and then come back to this, you'll know a bit better about what we're talking about. Or you can just re-listen to it later. I will do my best to explain as we go so you kind of have an idea about what is involved in each of these chronotypes and how they are different. So let's start with dolphins. So if you get the chronotype of a dolphin, you are part of about 10% of the population that usually suffers with insomnia. You are a light sleeper, you get woken up really easily, and sleep is something that you struggle with. The next chronotype is actually a lion. A lion is what we traditionally know as early birds, rising really early, being super motivated, health conscious. Lions are accounted for 15 to 20% of the population. The next chronotype you could get is a bear. The bear is the majority of the population. Approximately 50% of us are bears, and our schedules are middle of the road. We don't stay up too late. We don't stay up too early. Most people are bears, and that is why society functions around this rhythm. Our work schedules, for the most part, our meal timings are generally set around a bear's schedule. The interesting thing about the bear, though, is out of all of the chronotypes, they have the highest sleep drive. So if you end up scoring a bear, you need more deep quality sleep than all of the other chronotypes. So if you find that you get a bear and you're tired all the time, there's a very good chance you just might not be sleeping enough. So we've covered dolphins, which are insomniacs, lions, which are your early birds, bears, which are about an average middle of the road chronotype, and our last one is wolves. So wolves make up the last 15 to 20% of the population, and they are akin to what we know as late night owls. So if you want a really easy way to remember this, think of how these animals live in the wild. The reason dolphins are associated with insomniacs, because when a dolphin goes to sleep in the ocean, only half of its brain goes to sleep. The other half stays awake and searches for predators and makes sure that it is aware of everything going on. So a dolphin's full brain never actually goes to sleep, and they are always half awake, which is why the author aligned them with dolphins. Now, lions are actually animals that get up at the crack of dawn, and they are out hunting super early. They are considered a morning animal, and what they end up doing is spending a lot of the afternoon lounging, and their energy is much higher in the morning. So lions tend to prefer early morning schedules. Now, if you think about a bear, they like to sleep in a little bit. They have, their average schedule during the day, and then they're going to sleep at night. It's just more of a middle of the road schedule. And then lastly, we have our wolves, which are thinking of staying up late at night, eating at night, and they are nighttime predators. So that's how I remember to make it really easy. It's just, how does this animal show up in the wild? And that represents its chronotype. Now, you might remember me saying that the majority of the population are bears. Well, for the rest of us, dolphins, lions, and wolves, we actually experience the most social jet lag when we are trying to live a normal life. So remember I said society is set up with our work schedules and everything like that for bears. So if you are not a bear and you are fitting into a traditional work schedule, you might find that you are experiencing more social jet lag than normal. So making sure that you biohack your sleep and your bedroom and everything else to help really, create quality rest is going to be so important. So something interesting that I learned about chronotypes in specific, our chronotypes actually change throughout our lives. And you might recognize this as we go through. So when newborn babies are born, they're actually the most like dolphins, meaning they're insomniacs. If you've ever had a newborn before, you know that they are up every couple of hours. They have trouble sleeping through the night. Babies are your typical dolphins. Then as they turn into toddlers, they become lions. So remember, this is not a general sweep for all people. This is just the majority. So toddlers become lions. They wake up at 5:30, 6 a.m., 6:30. They like to start their day right away. As we grow up, we become teenagers, and then you experience another chronotype shift as teenagers become wolves. So wolves are late night owls. How many times, if you have teenagers, are you like, why are you still up? It's time to go to bed. It's midnight. But actually, that is their chronotype. They're not feeling tired at 9 and 10 and 11 o'clock at night. That's just not how their biology is wired. We go through another major chronotype shift at about 25 years old, give or take a little bit, where the majority of adults become bears and the rest of them turn into either wolves or lions or dolphins. We go through our very last chronotype shift when we are seniors, and then we usually revert back to being a lion or a dolphin again. So you will go through natural chronotype shifts as you age, and there is nothing more fascinating than actually watching that happen in children. So if you think back to, like, for me, for my university days, I used to be able to be out until 4 or 5 in the morning. And I always used to say to myself, how did I have the energy for that? I wonder how I did that, because now I am such an early bird. But what I didn't realize was happening at the time was that I was a wolf. My chronotype hadn't changed into my adult chronotype. I am now a lion. So that is the chronotype that I will likely settle into until I am a senior, if it shifts at all. So a question I often get asked when, we find out what our chronotype is, we're like, cool, I'm a bear, I'm a lion, I'm a wolf, I'm a dolphin. People say, okay, can I change it though? I don't like the answer I got. I don't like being a wolf. I want to be a bear. I want to be an early bird. Well, here's the thing. Your chronotype is actually genetic. It's determined by a gene called your PER3 gene. If you have this gene and it's really long, you're going to need at least 7 hours of sleep a night, and you tend to be an early riser. This tends to be the chronotype of a lion. Now, if you have a short PER3 gene, you generally tend to rise really late and you can get by on less sleep. And those tend to be our wolves. So if you have a long gene, you're likely a lion, an early bird. If you have a short gene, you're likely a wolf or a late night owl. And if you have a medium gene, it's not too long, it's not too short, you tend to be a bear. Well, why did we evolve this way? If you think back to prehistoric times, before, we had electricity and lived in houses and all that, we lived in caves, and we needed to make sure that the tribe was protected at all times. So there needed to be all of these variety of chronotypes built into the tribe, because there needed to be people to guard the cave at the end of the night, 11, 12, 1, 2, and have those members of the tribe be alert and focused to keep everyone safe. In contrast, we also needed to have people that wanted to get up early, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and were fully alert to guard the cave at that time in the morning, and the rest of the population got to sleep safely. So we've actually genetically evolved this way as a way of making sure that the herd was safe with evolution. So the funny thing happens when a lot of people take this quiz. They will say, like, well, Tanessa, I think the quiz was wrong. I am someone who always gets up at this time, but it says I was a bear. That doesn't make any sense. I think it's wrong. And I'm going to tell you a little anecdote. I had a client who went through the chronotype test, and we started implementing some of this, and she says the result that she got on her chronotype test, she was a bear, which means, approximately going to bed at 11 and waking up at 7. But she was living the schedule of a wolf, meaning she was going to bed at 12, 12:31, waking up at 8, 8:30, 9 a.m. in the morning. So she's like, it's got to be wrong. That doesn't make any sense. But the interesting thing was her energy was always, come and go. She was always tired and was experiencing social jet lag. So what we did was, when we were biohacking her sleep, we removed all of the things that were artificially influencing her sleep patterns and cycles. Like we pulled out the blue light before bed. We changed the timing of her last meal so it wasn't disrupting sleep. We were working on things like removing dopamine stimulation before bed and switching over to red lights and calming the brain down, like all things that disrupt sleep. And when we removed all of those, the fantastic thing that happened was within about 3 weeks of being consistent with pulling those things out, she now sleeps at 11 and wakes up without an alarm clock close to 7:20 or 7:30 on the majority of days. So this was so interesting. So if you have a result where you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense, it might just be because of the activities you are doing before bed that are artificially altering or changing your circadian rhythm. So this might be something to really test out. If you are out of sync and you're experiencing that social jet lag, this might be why. So one of the main benefits of being able to follow your chronotype is that you have the capability to wake up without an alarm clock if you are consistent. Like I said, I wake up probably within 20 minutes without an alarm clock every single day, sometime between 5 and 5:20 a.m. But I'm always asleep by 9 p.m. Like that is just how my chronotype works. But because I no longer need an alarm clock, my alarm is no longer waking my brain up in the middle of a sleep cycle. So if you remember what a sleep cycle is, our brain naturally cycles through deep sleep, and then we go for a dream, and then we come back to light sleep, back into deep sleep, into dream sleep, and back into light sleep. And this cycle happens over and over with different ratios of deep and REM sleep as we go through the night. So when we wake up with an alarm clock, you wake up it doesn't matter where you are in your sleep cycle, your alarm clock wakes you up. Now, your brain is never going to do that. Your brain is always going to try to wake you up at the end of a sleep cycle. Why? Because when you wake up in the middle of either deep or REM sleep, you are going to experience something called sleep inertia. So if you wake yourself up during a deep sleep cycle specifically, you will notice that you feel groggy, exhausted, wiped out of it, heavy eyelids for up to hours after your alarm clock goes off. If you interrupt a dream, you still get that sleep inertia effect, not quite as bad. So different chronotypes actually experience sleep inertia differently, but one of the best things is if we can really get a consistent circadian rhythm and our body can start naturally waking us up, we won't be waking up within the middle of a cycle and feel like we've been hit by a truck in the morning, because our body's always going to wake us up at the end of a sleep cycle. So like I said, it's worth a try. Be consistent with your rhythm. So now you're probably saying, well, okay, I know my chronotype, or at least you're going to find out on the quiz later. So you know your chronotype. So what does that mean for your sleep? So I'm going to give you a rundown of a bit of a combination between what the author suggests and I have found works best in practice with my clients. If you happen to get a dolphin as a chronotype, their sleep actually goes from 11:30 to 6. That is when their body is naturally primed for high quality sleep. They're going to be falling asleep on time, waking up with our natural temperature and hormone rises. If you get a lion, the optimal sleep window is around 9:30 p.m. for a bedtime, waking up between 5 to 5:30 a.m. Bears, going to bed around 11 p.m. consistently and waking up around 7. Wolves are going to bed around midnight and waking up around 7 to 7:30. So when I give these recommendations, I always say, think about this. You want to do your best that you can to be going to sleep and waking up within an 1 hour window. So I say, find the time that works best for you. Add half an hour, lose half an hour, stay within that window. So think if you're a lion and you want to go to bed at 9:30, plus or minus half an hour usually tends to do the trick. Now, the caveat is this has to be followed on weekends as well. Otherwise, you throw yourself into sleep debt and sleep inertia all week, and you spend Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday catching up from all of the circadian rhythm disruptions that you did on the weekend by going to bed late and waking up late. So this is not to say you can't have a social life again, especially if you're like me, you're a lion and you go to bed at 9:30, there are always going to be exceptions where you are waking up or going to bed outside of your chronotype. This is okay. Nothing has gone wrong. The goal is the majority of night, you're doing your best to honor your body's natural biology, because at the end of the day, you can't bite your biology. These schedules are designed to be optimal and biological, but like I said, they're not always practical, and they're not always what your mind wants. So this is where I really want you to shift your thinking from being limited by your chronotype to becoming limitless. This is what this podcast is about, right? It's about finding those hacks and tricks to be able to give you that presence of mind so that your work is no longer spilling over into family time, that when you're with your kids or your partner or your friends, that you are mentally present and you're not always so tired or distracted and thinking about work. You're able to actually shut down because when you show up to work, you're focused and you're clear and you're getting stuff done. I mean, that's the whole point of becoming limitless. It's finding out what our bodies are capable of. So just because you have a chronotype that is not what your mind wants, instead of thinking of being limited, how can you really become limitless? So how have I actually ended up following this in practice? Well, I follow my chronotype as well as the timing of my productive work blocks and my light work blocks, my exercise, my meal timing. So many of these things I follow myself because I find that my brain works really well when I do. This is also how I assess setting my clients' biorhythms. We get our chronotype and then we go from there and use it as a guideline. And it's so interesting. I usually know what my clients, what their chronotype is before they even take the quiz, because if you read the book, it gives you such a breakdown of what type of qualities and personality traits is associated with each single chronotype. And it's so interesting how much our chronotype actually affects the time of day we do our best work. And this is something that I really help my clients with so that they can create an optimized schedule. So if you want help establishing that rhythm for your business so you can maintain, sustainable energy all day and really, be able to get into flow easier and know when to put your emails and your coaching calls or your consulting and all of that, I would highly recommend that you reach out and let's talk. Let's have a consultation and talk about working one-to-one together, because this is something that I help entrepreneurs with every single day to really help their brains elevate to the next level so that they can scale their businesses faster because they're not wasting any time in brain fog. So the last thing I want to do before we jump off today is talk about the lie of the 5 a.m. club, which is the premise for this whole podcast. But in order for this to make sense, you needed to know what a chronotype is and how your chronotype affects your ability to feel alert. So think about this. The 5 a.m. club is made for lions. Lions only consist of 10 to 15% of the population. Characteristics of the lion chronotype include people that are usually overachievers, they prioritize health and fitness, they like to strategize, and they are most likely to be entrepreneurial. So I want you to think about this. If you are a natural wolf and trying to join the 5 a.m. club, if you're naturally that late night owl, your body, you are going to be throwing yourself into jet lag every time you wake up at 5 a.m. and try to be part of that club. Same goes if you are a bear. If you are a bear trying to fit into the 5 a.m. club, you are always going to feel groggy. The reason for this is, let's just use a bear as example. Their melatonin drops off later than an early bird or a lion. So melatonin is the hormone that is responsible for making you feel sleepy. So if a bear wakes up at 5 a.m., their melatonin is still in high gear and they're like, what planet am I on? I am so tired. Where's the coffee? Whereas when a lion wakes up at 5 a.m., their melatonin has not only dropped off, but they are in the middle of a cortisol upswing, which is helping them feel alert, ready, focused, and ready to work. So not everyone is biologically geared to be part of the 5 a.m. club. It's not about willpower. It's not about discipline. It is literally your body's hormones, temperature. All of these things are not geared to be up at that time of day and to be working your best. Now, it's not to say you can't be. You absolutely can, but you're always going to feel out of line with your biorhythm, and you will always feel this in the form of that brain fog. But let's go back to the chronotypes of lions, these 10 to 15% of the population that are designed to be part of the 5 a.m. club. So remember how I said they are most likely to be entrepreneurial? I want you to think about this. Who is writing these books and running the businesses that sell you on the idea of the 5 a.m. club? It is likely an entrepreneur that has the chronotype of a lion, and they naturally saw so much benefit from instinctually identifying their chronotype completely by accident, But they didn't know that not everyone has the potential to be a lion. So they market this idea that successful people all wake up at 5 a.m. But that is a myth. It is just something that works really well if you wake up at 5 a.m. and if you are a lion. So how do you take all that information out there and apply it to you? Well, you can still do all of the same morning routines and rituals and strategies to get you focused for the day that a 5 a.m. club person does, but align it with your chronotype. So for example, if you're a dolphin, you're part of the 6 a.m. club. If you're a bear, you're part of the 7 a.m. club. If you're a wolf, you're part of the 7:30 a.m. club. So I really don't want you to think about it as early means more productive. It's aligning with your chronotype, which makes your brain work a lot better and be more productive. And like I said, if you want help from me to show you exactly how to do this step by step so you can feel more in sync with your biology, apply to work with me. There's a link in the description. This is a no-brainer if you are going through your day feeling groggy, feeling tired, feeling distracted, overworking, taking work home in your brain. This is going to help you really feel, like I said, in sync with your biology. And if you're like, well, what does it mean to be in sync with my biology? It means waking up before your alarm clock, always feeling refreshed, knowing when to do your deep work so you can fall into flow faster so that you can use your work time much more effectively. You're going to know when to work on emails and when to create content because those are two completely different types of work. And if you can optimize those in your schedule, you are going to be able to be more creative when you want to be creative and use the time to spend on emails when your brain is not feeling as alert and as sharp. And the other thing is I will help you understand your energy patterns. So you're going to know how to schedule your life, meaning different chronotypes experience energy bursts at different time of days. For example, lions get their upswing in energy between 8 and 10 a.m., but wolves don't actually experience it until after 4 p.m. So I can help you schedule not only your work, but your life so that you are going with your natural rhythm. Everything just feels so much better when you're not fighting your energy all the time. And most importantly, I'm going to be able to help you understand why all of this is so important because that's how my brain works. I don't want to know what time to go to bed at if I don't know why it's so important. So that's part of what I do is not only help you facilitate this whole schedule so that your brain is working a lot clearer, but I explain why so that your brain is like, oh my gosh, that makes total sense why I feel like this now. All I have to do are make these couple of changes. Yes. So like I said, the link is in my description. You can click it there and apply for a one-on-one consultation with me. During this consultation, I'm basically going to look at exactly what you're doing right now, and I'm going to identify where it is that all of these energy leaks and inflammation are creeping in that is slowing your brain down. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how, step by step, I would help you get to the energy, the productivity, and the level of business that you want by biohacking your brain. It's really that simple. And then after that, if you're like, hey, that sounds like a great plan, we can talk about what it looks like to work together after that. But like I said, your first step is going to be filling out the application form so that we can book our call together. So I'm really looking forward to seeing your name in my inbox when I get your application to work together. Otherwise, I hope you have a absolutely wonderful week and, really step into that chronotype. I want to hear about it. So actually, one more thing before we go. Can you find out your chronotype and then reach out to me on Instagram at Tanessa Shears? And can you tell me what your chronotype is and if it was exactly what you thought it was going to be or if it was something entirely different altogether? I would love to hear about it because I just geek out on this stuff and love hearing from you guys about what your chronotype is because it really will change your energy during the day if you can step into feeling in sync with your chronotype. Have a wonderful week, you guys, and I will talk to you next time. Bye. Ready to begin each day feeling energized and focused? I'd love to work with you one-on-one. In my Becoming Limitless program, you're going to learn how to optimize your brain and body with science and biohacking so you can be highly productive and grow your business faster. Join me over at TanessaShears.com/work with me. I'll see you there.